these lineups, there are no mirrored decks, right? It's just two completely unique lineups. And
I had to take a moment just to check. I was like, no, good.
No trust in this partnership.
Zero, absolutely zero.
Which is fair, because I've only been punished when I've done it with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just continues to show that, like, the meta right now, although everyone is, of course, looking forward to a rotation, some Hall of Fames, new expansion, but the meta right now, tournament-wise, is wide open. Look at what Viper, Bunny Hopper, and now these guys and everyone else here have done. They've kind of just brought their own thing.
Yeah.
And then this, hopefully, it works. But as you said, we will continue to claim ownership of Tyler, especially if he becomes the world champion. It's a victory for Europe as far as I'm concerned, but he will have to fight through this matchup with Faeli before any of that is going to happen regardless. Faeli going to be on the Priest and Tyler on the Hunter.
And also, decks aside, this is one of the most interesting matchups, one of the most exciting matchups for me on a personal level as well, because I'm actually a huge fan of both of these players. You know, if you've watched HCT in the past, you'll probably have heard me very overtly rooting for Tyler. Bias clearly on display. He's a teammate of mine, a good friend of mine, and personally I think a fantastic player and a great guy as well. But Faeli, if you do also only tune into the HCT events, there's a good chance that Faeli is the best player in the world that you've never heard of, because he has an incredibly consistent tournament record. Since 2015, he's essentially gone from strength to strength, and then this year he's had such an incredible consistent performance in terms of top 8 after top 8 after top 16 after top 4, just over and over again through all of the tour stop events, but has not quite yet made it to this huge stage. And this is really a year of work on the line, because we've switched tacks here. Leading up to this point, everything's been about the positive, the progression, the qualifying out of groups. But now both of these players find themselves on the lower side of their group, meaning defeat means that their tournament life is over. They are going home.
Yeah, and truly is the last chance for Faeli on the top there, because he does not have a spare World Championship ticket lying around at home. Whereas Tyler does have one at home, no doubt, on the shelf. The invite is there. Although I will say, I believe Rivius is in the Twitch chat cheering for Tyler as we speak, Sol. So he has a big stake in this matchup as well. He is wanting Tyler to win so he can take the points leader spot that Tyler will not need anymore, because he gains it through winning or qualifying through this championship.
Yeah, Rivius and friends, in fact. We've heard that Rivius is actually like organizing viewing parties in Korea to kind of get here and not only, support the local Korean player in definition, but also to root very heavily for Tyler for that exact reason, because Tyler is functionally Rivius's proxy in this tournament. Yep. If Tyler qualifies, then that spot bleeds down to Rivius as second place in the point standings.
Right, and taking a look at this matchup, it is the Tyler bringing the mid-range Hunter instead of, Faeli. It does have Hunter, but it's Death Rattle, but mid-range Hunter versus the Control Priest. So now this cloning shenanigans are going to be involved in this matchup. But I will say, this feels better for Faeli than it would if he had Clone Priest, in my opinion at least. I feel like the Dustbreakers, the Pyromancers, even just the Twilight Acolytes for early minions that have a high enough health total to battle these early Hunter minions puts him in a much better spot as he would be for passing for 5 turns and hoping he doesn't die.
Yeah, and I like that the players that have brought the Dragon Priest to this tournament have really doubled down on the anti-aggro build, right? We're seeing Wild Pyromancers in there, we're seeing Cabal Shadow Priests in there, all of these kind of inclusions alongside those usual Dustbreakers and the standard fodder. Because if this is in your lineup, it's there to do a very singular job. If you want to kill people with Mind Blasts, there's a better deck you can pick to do that. Your job as this Dragon Priest is really looking towards the anti-aggro side of things. So I really like that all the players, Faeli included, who have brought it, have really doubled down on the anti-aggro, and you see immediate dividends being paid with the Wild Pyromancer as using the coin with the correct sequencing just to get 1 proc off that Pyromancer, dominating the board early on, taking care of the Spring Paws.
Yep, really nice here, as well as the Northshire Cleric draw is going to be useful, maybe not right now, but at least the Power Word Shield can be played to be able to ping off the extra 1 damage that Faeli needs to be able to kill off this Misha, although he can't do everything he wants to do. In a perfect world, he would be able to play the Cleric, say Power Word, shield it, and then heal, or vice versa on the Pyro to make something live and draw cards as well.
Yeah, I think for me this turn was Power Shield and just potentially heal versus the Twilight Acolyte play was viable as well, right? Just to steal the 4 attack from the Misha, neuter it a little bit on the board, does leave it there in play, and the 2/4 Misha and the Diamol would be able to challenge the Pyromancer in that spot. So I think when it boils down, this is probably the stronger of the 2 lines.
Yeah, really key draw as well for Faeli there, as he does pick up the Twilight Drake that last turn, which means that his Dustbreaker is active. At that time, it was acting as a battery for cards like Twilight Acolyte,
Yep.
but now the Dustbreaker's live, so Faeli just has that great feeling of saying, right, now I'm safe for a while, because the one threatening board you can make, I can probably clear it.
Tyler's struggling with how he wants to allocate this last mana here. Diamol being dropped doesn't seem to do a great deal. It does something in that it forces or it encourages Faeli to heal his Wild Pyromancer, right? Trade over one of the Diamols and then heal it so the second one doesn't just remove it from the board. That then chokes a lot of his mana, so he can't just play a powerful 4-drop like Twilight Drake. There is value in that, but it's kind of minimal value in terms of you know, how big a resource an extra beast in your hand is. And I think you can see Tyler's actions kind of reflected that struggle. He was in the tank for a long time, then you saw his mouse move towards the tracking, consider going that way instead, and then finally as the rope burned down, he did decide to throw out that Diamol, and it is going to potentially force out the heal here from Faeli.
Yeah, and I like this for multiple reasons. It either forces out the heal, which blocks the big 4-drop plays, and the 3-drop plays, actually. Or it doesn't, and you kill the Pyro and still just have 1 minion to deal with. And most importantly, I think what Tyler might well want to do here is get that Tundra Rhino down as safe as possible on turn 5, because then he has 1 turn to make it work before it can get stolen. And with that, having a combo of Hyena and Unleash available, or High Main, that follow-up turn, if it lives, is very powerful.
Personally, I would be surprised if we just see a turn 5 Tundra Rhino in this matchup. The way I'm looking at this hand playing out is potentially just saving Tundra Rhino for a little bit of a late game guaranteed combo, right? So you get like the immediate threat out of the Tundra Rhino. Because that also very often protects it from Cabal Shadow Priest, because you put so much other nonsense into play alongside the Tundra Rhino that your opponent can't just afford to spend 6 mana on stealing it. I think now with 4 damage in play already, that does probably put the nail in the coffin for the Tundra Rhino play.
Yeah, well,
No,
I was going to say, my problem is, what else is the turn? You are falling behind, and there are no other good turns that you can make.
Sure.
And at least now, well, now Faeli has to have another spell,
Yeah.
or a form of damage. And the damage right now would be a Dustbreaker, or exactly the card he has drawn, which does clean it up very nicely. Faeli only running a 1-off, though, of that scale 1.
It goes back to that tracking versus Diamol turn, right? If he'd have used the tracking there, he could have potentially found something else to do on this turn that wasn't just dropping out a fairly sad-looking Tundra Rhino onto the board.
Gotta think of the payoff, though. The second that Rhino lives, that is a huge swing in terms of power level for this game for Tyler.
It is.
But now, I feel like things go from bad to worse. To be completely honest, that first half of the High Main is just already dead. One of the Hyenas can 100% be killed off this turn, and the other one can just be stolen by this Cabal Shadow Priest. So I think Faeli's feeling pretty good about game number 1 so far.
Faeli will take a moment to consider his Cabal Shadow Priest usage, especially with 2 Twilight Acolytes still sitting there in hand, ready to pair with it. You do actually have a nice trade available just with a Twilight Acolyte as well. If you go Twilight Acolyte heal, and you can just trade over the Savannah High Main quite naturally. Yourself an additional 6/4 on the board. Not going to use the heal though. I was going to heal on the Pyromancer afterwards. Okay.
The only weird thing with this is it does leave a minion for Tyler to play with this turn. Whereas the other turn wouldn't have, and would maybe presented a more immediate powerful board. But yeah, the Twilight Acolytes, it's always nice to get, you know, large percentage value from that ability, as opposed to just playing it as a minion sometimes.
Yeah, so I do like this more. Reason being, like, Faeli is in control, right? So he doesn't have to worry too much about, you know, dominating this board state 100% when he can dominate it 90%, because he's not going to win the short game from here. Tyler needs to signal to him that he can play the long game, which is, you know, Deathstalker Rexar second High Main, all those kind of things. And if that world does come to fruition, that's what Faeli has to plan for because it's Tyler's only real win condition. And in that case, having Twilight Acolyte Cabal combination in hand, you know, if it's just big Builder Beast gets slammed down from Tyler and just stealing that, I think it's a better insurance policy to have. When, like, this play was already fantastic, right? It was a 9 out of 10 play. So why make the 10 out of 10 play that can potentially bite you in the butt later?
10's better than 9.
10 is more than 9, sure.
It's my argument, I'm sticking with it.
Okay.
Okay. Really interesting hyena choice there. Just because it always feels bad, especially as mid-range hunter, to play what could be a powerful minion that is already dead. The hyena knows it, Tyler knows it, we know it. If Faeli chooses so, this hyena 100% dies this turn. And it doesn't even kill off the pyro if Faeli wants to heal. This pyro's immortal in this matchup. It's crazy. Is this just a good enough Dustbreaker? I was going to say, you know what? That's fine. You can heal the Pyro, and now your board is 2 3/3s, one of which has a very powerful live effect. And you've seen a lot of stuff now. You know, are they going to get any better Dustbreakers this game? Well, if you play it now, hopefully not.
Right.
Already, just time and time again, with Faeli's hand size, you just have to believe that even if Tyler plays this high main, Tyler can't expect it to get that much work done. Maybe he has to high main Razor more, try and get Divine Shield, Stealth, something that helps, maybe just plus health is enough, and just say, well, I need this high main to stick. I can't do anything without it. Like, if this doesn't stick, I lose anyway.
It's a very sad play to make from Tyler's perspective, though, having drawn Dire Frenzy, because now he's kind of sat with a Dire Frenzy somewhat stranded in his hand when, you know, Crackling Razormaw is such a fantastic card to use that on.
My favorite card to use that on, actually. I will say, though, that this play is as close to saying maybe one of these minions live so I can Dire Frenzy it next turn.
Yeah.
Because you've got to hope now for Tyler sitting there thinking, you can't have that many more just easy removal tools left.
Yep.
You've just chained them throughout the game.
I don't know. I think Tyler might have played against Dragon Priest before.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's untrue. But that is a nice draw, though, and it's going to enable Tyler to alter the game plan, which is why Deathstalker Rex is such a powerful card.
2-mana Hunter's Mark. It just looks so silly. It just looks wrong. It used to cost 0.
What's more silly is, yes, it's 2 mana, but I find the fact that it's still being played at 2 mana when, as he's quite rightly said, it used to cost 0. Oh, the times we live in, Sol.
Yeah, this is where Faeli's greed with the Twilight Acolyte, if you want to look at it that way, can potentially pay off, because Tyler's hand is empty. So Tyler is basically obligated next turn, unless he draws gas, to press the button and build the biggest, greediest, stupidest thing he can build, and then just slam it on the board. And at that point, this Twilight Acolyte keep from Faeli can just be game-ending. Tyler didn't draw gas, so I have to imagine that Tyler is going to make the right play here, which is building something big and greedy, and he's going to lose the game because of it.
Yeah, you can't even blame him for it. It's just it feels like a lose-lose scenario, and you have to play as if they don't exist.
Oh, stealth is a big factor, though.
Didn't go for it. I think the issue was it would have made, because of the first choice of Arthas, it would have made the minion unplayable this turn, which means, well, okay, I built a cool beast, I have to then pass, play it the turn after.
Did you take note of what the other options were alongside Arthas?
There was the 3/3 Lizard Man that does Elemental, and something that also was not as good as Arthas.
Okay. Because I do quite often think Arthas is a trap card in terms of building a beast. I think it is extremely expensive for the for what it adds to the package. But regardless, Faeli will take it. He's not greedy.
I've heard Lich King cards are pretty good.
Yep.
And now, kind of like being a dead horse. But
ah, yes, a 1-mana 1/1. Exactly what Tyler wanted this turn.
Poison?
Everyone playing caster bingo at home. It's center square. Bloat bat poison.
I wonder.
So he could Dire Frenzy with Unleash and play the Timberwolf as a worst case post rolling a beast.
Yep.
I don't really know what that does though.
Not a great deal.
No. And these options aren't great either. It's like the rejected beasts here, isn't it? It's like a Silverback Patriarch, Oasis Snapjaw, who's just an old man at this point saying, well, back in my day, I was in Hunter decks. And Bloodworm that I do like as a card overall, but the mana just doesn't add up for that lifesteal effect.
Oasis Snapjaw, still the best golden animation in the game. just chilling, snapping his jaw.
Disagree.
Ronseal Wood Varnish.
Actually, I'm going to go for Huge Toad.
Huge Toad is a banger as well.
Yeah. Lifesteal is going to come into play here, and Faeli does have to consider what he wants to do, but he can negate it completely by just using Holy Fire and continuing on with his life.
Does Primordial Drake present any better options? I don't think so.
Well, if he just Holy Fires and goes face, it just sets up lethal.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, you know, I find leaving it up or doing anything funky just creates more opportunity for Tyler to get something better. It's like, get rid of the minion, smack him in the face. Next turn, Tyler needs a God Beast to actually survive, or even survive, never mind, win the game. He trades instead.
I mean, my brain did go to this because Faeli is kind of short on just, you know, vanilla good cards to play, and Mind Blast very much falls into that category of vanilla good cards right now because it ends the game. So the reason my brain went to see, like, is there a good Primordial Drake play here, is I wanted to start drawing cards off that Acolyte to potentially end the game quicker, because as weird as it sounds, Faeli is on the clock to end the game right now because Deathstalker Rexar will eventually, given infinite time, take over. There's no such thing as infinite time against this deck because it will just eventually Mind Blast you down. But I can definitely get on board with Faeli looking to end the game by just generating more power on board, keeps that Holy Fire back. It represents the same damage being cast from hand as burst anyway, and just cycling through from that Acolyte, which he does get rewarded for picking up the Mind Blast.
Yeah, I mean, this does set up lethal anyway with the Holy Fire.
Yep.
The only slight query, this is pre-Mind Blast talk, by the way. The only slight query is, do you need the Holy Fire to kill a minion to then push, and then you're not quite there?
I tell you what else this does is give you a much better board state against Unleash the Hounds. And actually, if you notice, when the Unleash came down, you saw Faeli give himself just a little happy nod to himself.
Well,
I think this
Twilight
could
Drake he used was 1 health.
Yeah, exactly. This could specifically be what he was planning for, because not only did he trade off a 1 health minion, which was of course super vulnerable to Unleash, he also puts a massive 4/8 taunt in the way, which protects all these 4/2s and 4/3s and everything else that you have hanging around.
Over my casting career, I have come to the realization that I just like being very aggressive in every single game and don't think or consider consequences to my actions. It's like, hit him in the face.
The consequences to Faeli's actions here is that he has lethal, because those extra Acolyte draws have pulled him through to those Mind Blasts, which are going to round out the game. Combination of that and the big taunt in the way meant that Tyler's Unleash was not quite as effective as it could have been. And that is a 1-0 lead for, personally, my pick for most underrated player of 2018 and 2019 so far, Faeli.
Reasonable pick as far as I'm concerned, and I will say the pick of Control Priest in the lineup makes way more sense of the no Hunter ban than it has I've seen throughout many of the matches we've had over the past day and a half. Hunter keeps getting there and people keep not banning it, but with the Control Priest you have a pretty good deck to take it down, and Faeli really never looked like in trouble for that one. So that is going to be Faeli leading 1-0 over Tyler, but it's only game number 1. Everything to play for. This is an elimination match here at the Winter Championships, so don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.
Obviously, like, being a known Hearthstone player, I love the attention. It's great. Winning in Hearthstone is very much fun. But then I also learned that you can win a lot of money in Hearthstone. So the combination of winning and winning lots of money in Hearthstone, it really helps make the game more fun. My parents don't understand a thing about Hearthstone, but they used to watch the matches. It's always been my sister, my older brother, and both my parents who've been extremely supportive. My dad passed away 6 weeks ago. I wasn't quite sure how to deal with it. And I was like, am I supposed to tell my manager? Am I supposed to tell my online friends who I see once at every event? I just kept it all for myself. I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. And then one guy in particular, Fino, after not seeing me logging into Hearthstone for only a couple of days, he was like, Tyler, what's up? Is there something wrong? And that's when I kind of let it all out. The people I've met in Hearthstone are quite literally the best friends I've ever had in my life. They helped me both emotionally and at the time also financially, because I actually needed financial help. Last time when I qualified for the fall championship, my dad went around to the entire neighborhood in Vietnam and told everyone how awesome his son was. And he always taught me to just treat other people with respect, and I will just carry on to live life like my dad told me to. I kind of feel like I'm a new person now, and I feel like just the Hearthstone tournament is really nothing at this point. It should be no problem at all.
Yeah, last year, I kind of quit my studies. I finished my first degree, and then I decided not to go for master and try to give a shot for Hearthstone and playing competitively. Well, I would say that actually being the electrical engineering student is kind of the same as being the aspiring Hearthstone pro in a lot of ways. I've always been into maths and stuff, like not only at the university, but even before. I would say my family is the main reason. Like they always led me to analyze stuff. So starting with like playing board games. Me, my younger brother, and my two parents, we played a lot of board games, even computer games. We actually played StarCraft together when I was like 6. The greatest motivation in life, just to trying to be the best in anything. Like if it's work, if it's just card games, if it's like being a good person or whatever, like just trying to be the best is always what a person should do, I think. No, I don't believe in fate. It would be my girlfriend. Yeah, I actually really do call her usually after all of the important matches. I could definitely imagine myself as a card game designer, doing stuff like this, inventing new mechanics, inventing new cards, even possibly drawing cards or whatever. That's something I like as well. If I could bring one card to the executives, it would definitely have a new mechanic, which they have never even thought about, but I can't tell you yet. That would be a secret for now.
Faeli, sir, you can't just say, hey, yeah, I've got lots of really great ideas for cards, but I can't tell you what they are. You can do that with anything. Come on, give us the idea.
Yeah, whereas I think I have great ideas for cards, tell people, and they very heavily disagree.
You honestly theorycraft the worst Hearthstone cards I've ever heard of in my life.
It's a skill in itself.
They're always just 1-mana 10/10s for Hunter.
That's just not strictly true, okay? And look.
The caveat came in. You guys didn't see the moment of realization on his face. It was like, that's not. And then his face goes, you know what? That's kind of accurate.
People forget a lot of things, right? You can teach someone how to do something.
Yeah.
That's a teacher.
Yeah.
Right? That's a very important thing.
Mm-hmm.
I teach people what not to do, and that's just as valuable.
Fair enough.
It is. And what is valuable as well for these players is going to be this game that's about to start right now. This is an elimination match at the championship here. And they're basically just playing for survival in the tournament. And just as a side note as well, I feel like production need to warn me when they show a video like that, because I was not emotionally prepared to watch these things and then expect to talk on air. As both these players, you know, pretty much just citing family support as a big thing in their competitive careers, and both players are right here in the championship seats.
Yeah, and Tyler in particular, if you have been following on Twitter or even just heard him there in that interview talking about what he's been through recently, it's, you know, an incredible achievement to even have put himself back together emotionally to be able to make the run he did through playoffs and get here. And yeah, my heart goes out to Tyler. He's just such a great guy, and following his story and kind of the low to the high that he got by qualifying through playoffs is incredible, and I wish him all the best.
Right, and he's currently 0-1 down in this series, but you heard him in the piece, you know, well, compared to stuff that's gone on, playing Hearthstone ain't so bad. But Faeli is not going to be a pushover, and I'm sure he's going to try and contest this as he is 1-0 up. Pretty sure he'd like to make that as adding to the many 3-0 sweeps we've had so far this tournament. It's going to be the Q block going up against this Hunter again, and Faeli one of the few players who have brought Q block. But how's it positioned in the up-to-date meta of Q block versus Hunter as opposed to the olden days?
It's very different. Aggressive Hunter is generally the natural-born predator of slow Warlock. Like, going back as far as you can possibly imagine. This, I mean, I mentioned the Reynad quote earlier. This is literally where it came from. It was, you know, old-school Sunshine Hunter going up against Handlock. You know, the quote being, you know a matchup's bad when both players are trying to kill the same guy. Right. You know, Warlocks just tap themselves down. They have cards that do damage to themselves. Hunter's hero power keeps that going. Just that natural, you know, synergy or anti-synergy, depending on your perspective, between those two class designs means that Hunter almost always have an edge.
Yeah, I think as well, very fun just to see how decks have developed, and the amount of times we say, oh, do you remember when this card did this, is only a good thing. I like a lot of balance updates, but if you asked me 12 months ago, would we see Timberwolf on 1 as a common play at a championship? I would have laughed. Yet we are seeing it.
Yes. And
it is working as well. It does provide some support to the further drops that Tyler can play here, and this Hyena already being a bit of a problem for Faeli.
Yep. Faeli does go fishing with the Kobold Librarian here. He did choose to turn down the opportunity to play it on 1, which I totally agree with. I actually think it's vital to not play Librarian on 1 in this matchup, especially since, or particularly if you don't have Spellstone in hand, because getting Spellstone to 5 minimum is such a important facet of the matchup, because you're quite often behind, leading into that situation that we saw previously in the previous game, where Tundra Rhino can just get slammed on the board. Right. And if you don't have an upgraded Spellstone, then you really have no way to kill a Tundra Rhino. So Faeli there choosing to slow play as much as he could with the Kobold Librarian, eventually just being forced to just drop one into a Scavenging Hyena, which is a scary spot for him to have been in.
Right, and this play is often one that's not talked about enough, or at least the one aspect of this card called Dire Frenzy. Yes, shuffles minions in the deck that are buffed. Sweet, you can do that on some very, very powerful minions. Leok wouldn't be the first minion you would think. Also gives the minion on the board 3/3 though, and that's going to start beating someone up as we see Faeli already at 9 health. We blinked and the game could nearly be over.
The thing with Dire Frenzy is you put it on a mediocre minion, you think, you know, this isn't ideal, you know, I've just put it on a Leok. Then you draw a 3-mana buffed Leok from your deck.
This minion's great!
You're like, what am I talking about? This is insane. I just want to draw these forever.
It's like I've seen games, I think it was actually at playoffs, I can't remember the player, but just beat someone with the buff Diamoles. And it's just like, it's just a 1-drop though. Okay, so Ziliax is going to come down and try and at least help Faeli stabilize in this very aggressive opening from Tyler, but Kill Command can completely negate this extra lifesteal. Again, the buff Leok pushes 5, the hero power pushes an extra 2. Yet again, the question is asked for Faeli. What are you going to do?
And no Spellstone. That is the big factor. It's not a Tundra Rhino, as I specifically called out, but a Spellstone would have solved this problem very easily a couple of turns ago when Tyler just played the Leok and just had a Timberwolf alongside it. If there was a 5-damage Spellstone in hand for Faeli at that point, there would have been so much breathing room available. You ask if this is just game, the answer is no. There is a theoretical play to live, which is the Spellbreaker.
Track in, though.
Now, if there is not lethal found here from Tyler, things can get interesting, because Faeli's going into 7 here with Possessed Lackey Dark Pact as a follow-up to this Doomsayer. So this is a huge tracking now for Tyler.
Unleash is key. Kill Command as well. Wow. Those are not great.
Uh-oh.
And now the problem is, because the tracking decision was made... Nice small Leok. Oh, wait.
Razor Maw. One out.
It's going to be Razor more or Razor less, depending on what this buff is going to be with this adapt.
One
Shake
out.
of that for
Has
Faeli.
to go
Wind
for
Fury
it. Isn't there.
No, but it does mean he can just put him to 1.
Yep.
Just have, there is still Kill Command. There are still other things, and also Tyler's the same to Faeli, where you need to exactly live this turn. You have to heal or you are dead 100% of the time.
They'll serve me now.
Picks up the Void Lord. I'm not actually sure that's the better option in this spot, because Faeli actually has to end the game to his benefit very, very rapidly here.
I think it is because of Tundra Rhino, right?
I mean, there are additional outs that
Right,
kill
yeah,
him
yeah,
if it
sure,
was
sure.
Doomguard, but I think, you know, if you add up the total percentage of things that can happen to him, Faeli's just dead to a couple of hero powers here, right? Because he gets hero, he doesn't get to Gul'dan. He gets hero powered this turn.
I was just
he
looking
gets
at
hero
Gul'dan,
powered next
yeah,
turn,
yeah.
and then the turn before he Guldans, he gets hero powered for a third time. So with a cube in hand, felt like maybe the Doomguard there might have allowed him to try and set up a counter lethal, especially with second Void Lord in the hand that could potentially wall that out.
I wonder if the fear of the fact that you've just used one Dark Pact means you can't really rely on the cube ever generating the Doom Guards.
Right.
Because it's, you know,
Right.
you can't proc it, so it's just a cube then as opposed to a Doom Guard. But either way, he needed that turn to actually work, and it did for Faeli, so he is alive right now. I just like dropping the Leok here. I do think you hold everything else, though. Just for that potential Thunder Rhino, Spring Paw with the Hyena, you know, the trade, buff, the usual.
Doomguard's drawn. No Spellstone, no Dark Pact number 2 picked up yet for Faeli. As we mentioned, the big problem here is that he does not find his way to that Blood Reaver Gul'dan. No real merit in playing the Kobold Librarian. He can play the Kobold Librarian and see his next card now, which could be a Spellstone or a Dark Pact, or he can see that same next card next turn. It's the last card that he gets to see either way.
So isn't it better to do it now because it will buff the Spellstone? And he can cast it? And he can still play a Dark Pact anyway.
It's an argument. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what else he plays that makes him feel any safer. Like, Mountain Giant, cool, you can't set up lethal, so 2 turns you're dead without a heal anyway.
Right.
Do you just go for the big play that heals for 5 instead of 3? And cycle a bit deeper?
Almost out of time. I wonder.
Okay, just gonna play the Giant. No point dropping a Doomguard as far as I'm concerned because you're not scared of the minions, you're scared of the hero power. It's like high main hero power to me, Sol. Just put the biggest boy on the board. As long as you can press the hero power. Because you know Faeli does not have Spellstone if you were Tyler right now. Tyler taking his time to consider it because these are the points where optimization really changes the game and has an impact on whether you win or not. But the Hyena, I think, is just too big. It's just too good. You know, you actually starting to piece together along with his Lynx and the Leok, maybe stuff that can even hack through this Void Lord if a heal does come down.
Right. But alas, it's just the Defile that's been found. Faeli is going to take the honorable way out. He wants to know what that next card is. Turns out it was just a Mountain Giant. He was a long way from finding any healing there in the deck. And Tyler's super aggressive play with that Hunter. Some of the things that he did there, coined out a Timberwolf just to push 1 extra damage and have a 1-1 on board. He slammed Dire Frenzy on the very first thing he can find. Ripped a kill command at the first earliest opportunity, and you saw there the damage just built up over time, and Faeli just found himself 1 turn short, which is credit to Tyler. Perfect timing. Hero power execution the turn before Gul'dan could come down.
Right, and the Dire Frenzy, although there weren't many other plays that he could really make that turn, if you go back and watch a lot of mid-range hunters, especially the ones that are running 2-ops, you will see them lose a lot with Dire Frenzies in hand when they could have just buffed something.
Yeah.
And the quicker you buff it, the quicker you're likely to draw one of those big minions, as you said, kind of regardless of what it is, it's overpowered, literally, because its mana cost does not equate to its power level. So, you know, it's a nice play there, just getting the Dire Frenzy down. But the pressure was insane. Like I said, Timberwolf on 1, it's the new meta.
Yeah, he just played his stuff, and then it was in play. And that was about all he needed. Timberwolf on 1, Hyena on 2. Faeli was just stuck in this awkward spot where he just had to develop into a Hyena board, which you hate doing because you know things are going to go very, very badly for you. And then it was just inefficient clears. Hellfire didn't clear the board, just took some damage off the board and just kept on trucking. Tyler landed that Dire Frenzy, and that was basically lights out from there.
Yep, and just a final note as we get into this game number 3, as it's all evened up now, is you even see the impact that just an early Doomsday would have had in that game. right? Because there were no great answers from Tyler for a Doomsayer.
Yeah.
And then one Doomsayer buys you 1 more, 2 more turns. Everything looks a little bit more peachy. But let's move on. Faeli back on the Warlock, and Tyler shimmying over to this Paladin.
Even Paladin, and it's an even Paladin packing both a Zihi and a Nerubian Unraveler. He's got one of each in there, which means he does have a little bit of extra game against these decks that like to go late and do lots of funky stuff with their mana. You know, Nerubian Unraveler can mess with the Dark Pacts and the Spellstones and things that the Warlock likes to squeeze into their later game plays. And Zihi in itself, I mean, these days, since the nerfs, 6 mana is not a great deal for Warlock to be operating with.
It really isn't, and it does. It makes me laugh a little bit because a lot of the nerfs were aimed towards aggressive decks, and I just feel like, you know, aggro is dead. Long live aggro. It is the form for this tournament.
Literally every nerf ever is
Yeah,
that story.
it's very strange, isn't it? It's very, very strange indeed. But let's see if Even Paladin's going to do it again. We have seen some exceptional Even Paladin games so far within just this tournament. But it's going to be going up against a deck that runs cards that you can see, such as Defile and Hellfire, which really put paid to a lot of the early aggression or plans that Tyler can come up with.
Yeah, and also, crucially, it's just a slightly slower deck in terms of you know, aggression than we'd see from that Hunter previously that Tyler played, which just naturally gives Faeli just that little bit more time to set up, get his own game plan going. If it gets to the point where he's able to start dropping those Void Lords, it can be real trouble for any deck to get through, even Paladin chief amongst them.
Yeah, even with the equality nerf that we see some players still play, but it doesn't appear to be playing in Tyler's list that I can see at least. But I'll hold my hands up, not used to looking in the 4-drop space for equality quite yet on the deck list. But yeah, even with that, not only whether you play it or not, its extra mana cost just reduces so much you can do on any given turn on that play. One of the weird issues as well as like an extra problem is Warlock often can maybe even lock more than Cube, but can often just race the Paladin if they get a giant down, because Paladins really have any great answers to a mountain giant early, and then they just keep hitting you in the face and then you're dead. You don't really have too many defensive tools in that aspect.
Tyler's a really awkward looking hand. He's got the Corpse Taker, but he's already drawn the Wind Fury Harpy, which I believe is a single copy. Yes, it is, in the deck. But apart from that, like the rest of these cards are just pretty ugly in terms of just generating pressure.
I mean, coin Glass Knight into Blessing of Kings seems pretty nice to me.
It's true.
And I think regardless of what was going on that turn, coin 4-drop was going down.
Yeah.
Even if it was just a Blessing of Kings on a 1-1, which I would have liked fine as well.
Sure. I think in the immediacy, he does have a couple of powerful plays, but then it reaches the point where, you know, your best stat-for-stat play is a Spellbreaker or a Wind Fury Harpy. It's where things start to get, I think, a little bit more disappointing as the Paladin player.
Yeah, I think if you piece it together, you can imagine just Blessing of Kings potentially next turn, depending on, obviously, what Faeli does. And then maybe the Nerubian Unraveler just to try and, you know, finish out the game, to be completely honest. Try and negate some of this AoE.
Sure.
This is very nice.
Yeah, this is insane.
Ugh. Feels good.
If you told me that it was going to line up like this, then I'd be on board. Blessing of Kings on a Divine Shield, purely taking care of a Mountain Giant. And you're in business.
Well, you're either playing Skull now or probably not at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, very true. Faeli has a decision to make. Skull and Minari, massively powerful card. 2 demons in hand to use for it in the future as well, but again, even Paladin, a deck notorious for acidic Swampoos, sometimes 2 copies, only the 1 in Tyler's deck. But even just without considering the ooze, it's such a huge amount of damage to take in the immediacy.
I like it though.
Yeah, honestly, what other option do you have? I'm just looking at the rest of the hand, trying to find an argument to convince myself not to just say Skull Go, and I don't think it's there.
The best I've got would be Faceless, the 8/7. No, I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that's the best I can come up with, so if you're asking me. Like, but yeah, I like the weapon because, like I said, if you don't play it this turn, that isn't being played all game at this point, right? And also, the Doomguard pull over the Void Lord isn't so bad because you had the Faceless. So you can get double Doomguard if that happens.
Yeah.
So your power rating of getting the Doomguard instead of the Taunt is lowered.
And also, before this Corpse Taker came down, the Defile was very nice alongside the Doomguard as well to take care of the 8/7 and the rest of the board.
Ooh. Now, though. Faceless is just a good card.
Skull of the Minari is just a good
Well,
card.
More than one card can be good, Sal.
Nope, just one, and it's Skull.
So there's strange choices here, isn't there? Because there's two real routes that I can see immediately, which is the Hellfire Defile potential, or Defile Hellfire maybe.
Okay, yeah, I like it a lot more that way.
Yeah. I mean, like the combo of those two
Yeah,
cards.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Or this play of going 2 Void Lords is better than 1. It's kind of just better against Spellbreaker.
Yes.
Because now there are bonuses and negatives to both, but I think this is just overall better because you want to keep playing big taunts and try and maybe, if you draw a Dark Pact, you can cube one of them if only one dies, and so on, so on, so on.
I wonder.
Is this just too much for Tyler to hack through at this point? Because it's not so much whether he can kill them, it's the time it takes to hit through this many attacks that are required to punch through 9 health twice, and then the 3 times 1/3s.
He's just awkwardly a little bit off Consecration being useful to break out both of them, because if you're Tyler, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, you know, breaking open both of these and then punching through all the 1/3s afterwards, like, geez, you don't want to do that. But if you have to, it's a possibility, because you can say, all right, if I kill these 2 Void Lords, there's no cube coming down at least, and then I at least have a decent idea of what my game plan is. Unless he has that second Void Lord in hand already, then I'm in business. But since he can't kill either of them, this is kind of the best play he has in terms of trying to deny a cube play, because there you see
I was just going to say.
If the cube comes down, Faeli has to spend a turn without Void Lords on the board because the Nerubian Unraveler locks out the Dark Pact.
But I'll rewind to quote a famous caster not too long ago.
Yeah.
Skull of Minari is a good card.
It very
and
much
this Doom
is.
Guard can just clean off this Nerubian, and then we are going to see more of whatever Faeli wants. Whether that be Doom Guards or Void Lords. Maybe Doom Guards are just better at this point. Trade and then create 2 more. Trade.
You know what? The greedy boy in me just kind of agrees with you.
I mean, I feel like Doom Guards copying them do more than a Void Lord at this point. Or 2 Void Lords. Because when you ever losing board? Yeah, I Faeli agrees with me, so I must be right. So I judge on my casting. Did the player make the play I suggested? Yes. Awesome.
I don't think you should confess that.
It was a joke.
It's just not a good look, is it?
It was a joke. And it very rarely happens. But in all seriousness, I do feel the Doom Guard does just apply way more pressure. It ends the game quicker and clears off the board.
Yeah.
All of those things that a Void Lord does not really do as well.
Right.
I wonder.
Tyler kind of just bobbing along trying to work out exactly what he wants to do this turn, because he's just got a whole lot of bad options, to be completely honest.
Yeah, and this is my rewind to my comment on turn 3, where we've just about seen that push of Glass Knight and Blessing of Kings get dealt with, like just now.
Yeah.
And even in the meantime, he hasn't really drawn anything else to continue it. It's just a pile of very mediocre looking minions.
Bring back Call to Arms for even Paladin. It's going to be gone soon. Just unnerve, bring it in. Let's go.
That'd be pretty sick, actually, if like for just like 2 weeks before rotation, they just went, you know what, chaos. Unnerve everything.
They did Molten Giants.
That's true.
Didn't they?
Yeah.
Was it? If you're listening, because
Yeah.
you're in some rooms next to us here. So
So how much damage can these cards do in 2 weeks? Just have fun. Go play.
that would be incredible.
Yeah.
And now it just feels like it's going from bad to worse at this point. Ziliak's pickup means Faeli's not even just taunt total, but just life is just going to be even more solidified. It becomes very difficult for Paladin to, or even Paladin specifically, to pull out just extra damage time and time again through taunts.
Faeli even feeling free to life tap now, and there's that Spellstone that he was found wanting for in the previous game. I guess when it rains, it pours. Faeli's found basically all of the defensive options in this game. I think he would have loved to have deferred some of these to the previous game to keep him alive against the Hunter.
I think I kind of mentioned it again. The only thing he's missed this game is a Doomsayer, isn't it? It's like it's really the only card, singular card he's missed that he would have maybe liked for some early, you know, negating that coin play, for example. Spellstone going to come down on the Lackey. Consecrate's going to be very nice, clearing up a lot of the board. So it's not like Tyler is under any real threat of lethal and of losing the game very quickly, but Faeli can just keep on trucking. Never mind, there's
Rounding out the set. Expect we're starting with a life tap this turn. Yeah, there it is.
Unity, precision.
This is important. I think important for Faeli to keep life tapping here. You know, especially with the Ziliax in hand, negating the a couple of life taps at least. He is even more gassed out than Tyler is right now. Like Tyler at least has some stats in hand that he can play if he really needs to. Finally, we are going to see that Acidic Swampoo's come down and stop the Skull of the Minari train rolling. And now this is Tyler's big counter push where he says, all right, not enough mana to play any more Void Lords that you draw from hand. Prince Taldaram, though, that's cheap enough to get rolling.
Really is. It'll do enough right now. But also as well, one of the problems with Zihi and to a large extent Unraveler as well is they don't do much when you're behind, I feel. Because even this mana reduction for Faeli, it's like, but I'm already winning.
Yeah.
Okay, you're on low mana too. You know, like, you just stay further ahead at this point. So not blaming Tyler for the play at all. Mainly it's just get a 5/5 on the board that can do something. But it definitely doesn't feel as good as dropping the Mojo Master when you're already ahead on board.
Sometimes you just look at even Paladin and just
you
think,
wonder why.
This is a really bad deck. It just Wind Fury Harpy, double Amani Berserker Hydrologist. Like
prepping for post rotation.
The quality of these cards is not really through the roof, is it?
I don't even know what Tyler wants from this Hydrologist. More than it can offer, I feel.
Reporting for duty.
Gonna prioritize killing off the Ziliax. Not only does it keep the amount of attacks on board for Faeli next turn low, it also just removes the heal effect. Saul shaking his head like he doesn't believe me. Pretty sure what I said were just facts.
I was actually scratching my eye by moving my head back and forth on my thumb, if you must know.
Don't know which one I would prefer as an outcome, to be honest, that's all.
Sorry, scratching my eyelid, just in case that really freaked anyone out. I wasn't actually just scratching my eyeball.
If he was, you would not hear me as calm as I am now, because I do not like people messing with their eyes.
Get down!
Is there any real punish for just slamming a mountain giant?
I can't immediately think of something that I'd be happy describing as a direct punish. What I will say is that there's a very real argument right now of just making the safest play possible, right? Like the play that always keeps you alive, because Faeli doesn't need to do anything else this game except play Gul'dan, and the game is over, right? So if he can just at least be alive for a couple more turns, the game, he just wins. The game just ends.
I just wondered, with Spellbreaker, would the Giant plus either double Hellfire or Hellfire Spellbreaker would have just done the job anyway?
No,
you know, actually end the game before 10 even gets there?
I do agree with you, and it's one of the most obvious splits in player mentalities as to what the safe play is, right? Like, is the safe play the play that ends the game quicker, or is it the game that prevents you from dying more often?
Don't know.
Yeah.
I struggle to not play a Mountain Giant when it costs me 3 mana soul. That's just my overall problem.
But no real harm done. Like giant Breaker here it does make the lethal 1 turn slower, but you know, as a man called Life Coach once said, it's not as if you do it faster than you just get an A.
I know a word in multiple Life Coach quotes and theories throughout the day, but Faeli does take the lead in this series now, 2-1 over Tyler, and it's kind of a weird series, very back and forth, because every single game that's happened has felt very one-sided in my opinion. They've just been taking the victories pretty straightforward, the deck doing what you want the deck to do. The Hunter dumpstering the Warlock in the previous game, and now this Warlock just putting up a huge wall, stopping Tyler's even Paladin getting through.
Yeah, and it was Scarlet Minari really doing the heavy lifting. You know, Faeli there drew it on 5. It descended like mana from the heavens, and he just had to take a long, hard look at it and say, can I do this? Can I take the 11 damage or whatever it was that was on board and afford to get this out? You know, if I get the Void Lord, great. What happens if it's the Doom Guard? Am I still alive? I think recognize that he had all his bases covered with the Faceless that you mentioned, the Defile that I mentioned that could still get him out of jail. Playing the Skull was a good decision, as it always was, and really that was just a Skull game.
Yep, everything on the line here. This is an elimination match, and Faeli's last chance to book a spot at the World Championship. Is he going to take the series? I don't know, but we're going to find out soon.
I think that after I qualified for the Fall Championships, a lot of pressure went off my shoulders. Trying to have a clear mind and not worry too much about the outcome and focus more on the process itself. Froden tweeted once that Hearthstone is really a game about the mindset. All 16 players know how to play Hearthstone, but I wonder, out of these 16 players, who will be able to play at the best ability under pressure. Honestly, lately I've been trying to really maximize my efforts, and that goes from sleeping well, eating well. Honestly, I haven't looked at all the deck lists. I only looked at the deck list from the people in my group, and I think I won't have too much problem getting past Bloody Face because he has Quest Rogue, but I have even Warlock instead of his Quest Rogue. So based on that, I should already be slightly favored. Honestly, the meta is pretty settled. We've played these decks for a very long while, and I just decided to go with my comfort picks and decks I'm comfortable with and that I know are strong.
Swipe to the face. Rivius needs a miracle.
I'm really not scared of anything. I think if anything, people should be the most scared of me. I think I do have the added pressure of the Korean fans rooting for me, so I guess I'll have to try hard. To all the fans over the entire world, thank you for voting for me. I'll get you guys the 4 packs like promised. Việt Nam vô địch. Cảm ơn các bạn ủng hộ cho mình. Saranghamnida.
I've been playing since the release. I've been focusing on Hearthstone more like last 2 years, and 2018 was the best year for me. It kind of started with me leaving my former Czech team, and I started going to some major events, and I had to go there on my own. So I went to Bangkok, then I went to Oslo for the HCT tour stops. I managed to place second in Oslo, and that's where it all started. I got some money for my future trips, and it was a nice experience and got me in the right direction. I designed my lineup so it doesn't really have any horrible matchups out there. Like, there are lineups that are really greedy, there are lineups that are aggro, like Bunny Hopper and Viper are playing the aggro ones, which are supposedly good against the greedy. I'm not really scared of either of those, because they usually have at least one deck that I'm really perfectly able to beat. The side effect of this is that I don't have really any opponent that I would be like super favorite to beat. I'm not totally greedy, but I went with the greedy decks mostly, but I'm missing the Clone Priest, which is in a lot of lineups the weak point, I would say, against the aggro. So I'm playing Control Priest instead, which obviously leaves me vulnerable a little bit against the greedy guys. My lineup is just a hybrid between those, I would say. In particular, I'm running a lot of Spellbreakers. A lot of people brought even Paladin, which might be a deck that's pretty good against aggro and against the greedy guys as well. I estimated correctly that people are gonna play it a lot. So Spellbreaker is one card I'm looking forward for playing a lot, because it's gonna shut down those Spike Rich Steeds and a lot of other cards. In general, what I would like to do is always take my time, because one thing is, when you play too quickly, it's definitely gonna show your opponent some information about your hand or anything at some point. So I would like to keep my time spent in each turn like kind of constant, so I'm not giving any reads for my opponents in this way.
never think you've been in this situation and you know what to do. Like you should always think about it like as you are the first time in that situation, and then you might come up with something you don't know. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for all the support. And ahojte všichni v Česku a díky moc, že mi fandíte a snad se nám bude takhle dařit na čempech. Čus!
We are back and ready to continue this series between Faeli and Tyler. And a pretty crazy series it's been so far. Very, very back and forth, but very one-sided specific games. But now Faeli only has his Druid left up against Tyler's Paladin and Priest. And he's going to be locking that Druid in now, of course. And what do you make of this list, Sol?
The Druid?
Yeah.
It's not the list I was really expecting to see from the Druid players that brought it. Mali Druid, we've seen the Hakar version of the Druid coming out. This is just plain old Azalina Tog Druid, which is not a deck that I've been seeing knocking around too much.
Yeah, it feels like it's a very, very strange list and has been since it was sort of first created, discovered, is that the people who tried it either hate it or love it.
Oh, yeah.
And love it too much. People have just never stopped playing that deck, regardless of what's been going in the meta. It's like, no, Tog Druid's the best deck. And we see, some specialists, and Faeli, I'm guessing, deemed himself one of those, is to bring it to probably the most important tournament of his life. He must be feeling pretty confident with it.
Yep. I think a couple of interesting things out of his interview there in the break is, firstly, he said that he brought a lineup because he didn't want to have too many glaring weaknesses, so he kind of hedged. He's got a quite greedy lineup, but then he's got the Dragon Priest thrown in there as well, for example, which is a very anti-aggro deck. He didn't want to have too many glaring weaknesses, but because of that, he doesn't have any massive strengths in terms of hugely favored series either. And secondly, he's revealed that he actually has premonitions because he talked at length about how he's going to really enjoy spellbreakering some Spike Ridge Steeds, and then that just exactly happened. Oh.
Yeah, I think his discussion about just tech cards in general is interesting because tech cards are a big thing in this tournament and probably have been for the recent meta. In that we spent most of the tournament talking about Druid Unraveler, Mojo Master Zihi, and whether they're powerful enough and do enough, because we haven't seen that many games where they've been game winning at all. It's going to be your favorite deck though, Sol? Clone Priest for Tyler?
My favorite deck.
Yeah, ever?
The deck that I feel obligated to defend against the troglodytes that I'm surrounded by.
Very clever troglodytes, because some of these troglodytes have been pretty right over the past couple of days.
It's true.
Who's worse?
You have indeed chalked one up. I do want to mention, though, Tyler did rip the Shadow Visions on 2, which I talked at length about a player passing on the turn 2 Shadow Visions. Because this is a very different situation where playing against Druid, you really do need to go fast, especially against a Druid that isn't Mali Druid, for example. It's one of the truly, ultimate win condition decks in terms of Azalina Tog or the Hakar version. Tyler does need to set up some big win for himself very quickly, whether that be through huge minion presence or through huge burst damage. Either one has to be achieved quickly. The burst damage win has to be achieved before the Druid can just stack 1,000,000 armor on top of their health total, and the minion win condition has to be achieved before the Druid themselves can just get through their entire deck and just steal yours before you can get to those big minions.
Yeah, because you have very little impact on it, the game once Faeli would do that, right? With the Tog Druid. So kind of goes out of your hands. So Tyler trying to keep as much control as possible. And one side thing, like having Malygos in hand isn't so bad, especially because of these coins, because he'll just want to play it, get it in play, make Faeli either kill it, or if not, great. If he does kill it, as always with this Clone Priest, also great. I can summon it for cheaper. So not, having Malygos in your open hand, not always as bad as it looks. No real reason to not drop the Radiant Elemental as far as I can see. And just a side note there, we do have Samiao versus Thunderup as the next elimination match, followed by Bobby X and Lion King a little bit later on today. So still plenty of Hearthstone to come up. And as we said earlier, we have effectively put 4 people into the top 8.
Yep.
And there are 4 people about to go home.
Yep. This match and both of those matches you're about to see coming out, one of those players will be eliminated from the tournament. The other will live to fight another day, quite literally coming back, either coming back tomorrow to potentially try and get themselves out of groups.
Tyler holding back actually on the Radiant Elemental, just plugging away. with the gargoyles, and now Faeli just pretty much doing the same. Interested to see how he wants to use this coin, whether he feels like even coining out, say, Malfurion is even worth it, or if he wants to hold on to it for something a little bit crazier later on, because you do have to look at those innovates, and we've already cast matches this tournament where innovate was used maybe a little bit quickly and not for enough value, but the coin kind of adds an extra one to your deck. Play a little bit more looser with it.
Finally here, considering his options, not just his curve, but also how and if he even wants to develop on this board, because these gargoyles don't really do a great deal if he doesn't allow them to die, right? There's no like big explosive fast cloning gallery or anything like that if the coins can't be given. And I think this is actually a good middle ground, because I was about to lead on to the fact that the downside of not letting the gargoyles die is that they continue to smack you in the face.
Right.
And then you're being pushed down into like a Mind Blast win condition. So the spreading play kind of covers both bases. It doesn't allow the gargoyles to kill themselves, at least immediately, but it also essentially heals you for this turn, and that continues to increase ongoing by just stopping them from connecting to face.
Yeah, even another plague there, so we can trade them both off into the Lyra if he really wants, and re-plague for a full 3 tokens, because the Lyra's on as a 5/5 now, so it will actually kill off one of the big ones. I mean, if you used a coin into Plague, then depends how much damage he's willing to take. Does have this swipe and spellstone, so he can clear off the board and keep the tokens. Maybe push some damage himself, but damage is probably the least important thing in that this Druid deck does. Unless it's actually the lethal damage, which naturalizes late game, of course, before someone laughs at me.
Unless it's the 12 damage you're taking from your 12th tick of fatigue.
Yeah.
That damage matters.
Yeah, early game damage. Yeah. There you go.
I think sending Lyra down there is valid for Faeli, though. I think it's responsible usage of the swipe. I think Lyra is a card that tends to be overrated both by Clone Priest players and Clone Priest opponents. I think it plays an important role in the deck, but I think players are too quick to go off on Lyra when they don't necessarily have to. And also opponents they give too much respect to killing Lyra in situations where they don't necessarily need to. In that particular situation, though, leaving Lyra there and then allowing your opponent to get 2 coins in hand, you can potentially just let them juice an entire spellstone in 1 turn off that Lyra cycling spells, which can then be a huge problem for you as Druid, because you have no way as Druid to really interact with a 4-minion res of Spellstone if it gets to that point.
Yep, and Tyler did use those coins to just get out the Malygos. As I said, he probably just wants it out as quickly as possible. 1, get it in the res pool, but 2, most importantly, just asking Faeli if he can even kill it.
Yep.
In the first place, 12 health is a lot.
Also, asking if he can kill it, the #1 way he's going to kill it is with Naturalize. If Naturalize gets used, that is a huge hole in the win condition then for the Azalina Tog Druid, because they need Naturalize to potentially fill up the opponent's hand and then use Togwaggle if they're going to be forced to just go for that route. Or alternatively, and perhaps more dangerously, they use Naturalizes to essentially burst you down after they've emptied your deck and swapped to just force you to draw fatigue cards.
Yeah, the Azalina in hand means that there is some leeway for Faeli in terms of not having to fill the hand up for Tyler.
Right.
Because he can Azalina the treasure again and just be able to swap the decks once more.
Right.
But yes, it is a problem. If you force a Druid that has this style of win condition to use a Naturalize, it's normally a good thing. Is he dead? Quick maths.
Vivid Nightmare. No.
Okay. Maths was sufficiently quick. This alone, though, just Spirit Lash, whack him for 4 is just fine.
I must consider.
Because at this point, the thing to bear in mind is, 1, this board can be cleaned up pretty easily for Tyler, but then Eternal Servitude and there's still the Vivid Nightmare means that this can piece together quite easily, and this Radiant Elemental now going to the pool means that it's also just a guaranteed set of okay, it's not now because of the Lyra, so I forgot, but like the Spellstone is actually fairly reasonable as well. And speaking of going off when you don't necessarily need to, Sol, what do you think about this?
I'm trying to process it. It's
exactly why I asked you the question.
I
No one
know.
else can see the puzzlement on your
I know
face.
you've rushed me. I was formulating thoughts. I definitely wasn't expecting this play. What it is doing is juicing that spellstone, right? It's the thing I was talking about where he's potentially getting that spellstone up to scratch, and when he fires off that spellstone, it is now a 4-minion res. He is getting Radiant Elemental, Lyra, Gilded Gargoyle, and Mali if and when this Mali dies. So I can definitely get the game plan of going for it, but it does seem bizarre just to go off on the Lyra like that when the Eternal Servitude could have been used to just bring back Mali when you had Twilight's Call in hand as well.
Well, my main query was I get the Servitude, bring back the Lyra, do some stuff.
Yeah.
My issue was the Servitude and the Vivid Nightmares.
Vivid Nightmares, sorry, I said Twilight's Call.
Okay. Yeah, the Vivid Nightmares was the real one that was like, wow, this is really going in. And Vivid Nightmares normally 3 mana double your damage, which is a very good card. Genuine surprise from us on the desk here. Tyler's just playing with Sottle's emotions.
He has been known to do that.
I remember the last champs he was at when you were just a mess.
Yeah, I was.
It was glorious.
That was before he had the World Championship
Yes,
spot
yeah,
locked
it
up.
was.
Or I should say, he did lock up the points lead at that championship, which then made him pretty much impossible to catch. But we hadn't really worked that out at the time, so I was stressing, hoping he would qualify the natural way through championships, let's say.
Now that Spellstone is not full scary, but sufficiently scary, and that is a pretty good roll as well, just getting the Malygos and the Lyra. Maybe the only thing here is the Radiant would have been maybe a little bit better. Or maybe actually just Shadow Word Pain's the 2/2.
I was just going to say, like, if he had the Radiant, yeah, okay, he'd have a 1-mana Shadow Word Pain to kick this off, but he wouldn't be able to Shadow Word Pain anything except the Radiant itself, whereas...
That Lyra.
But again, this is kind of that situation where, like, maybe Lyra's just a trap, right? Like, great, you can cycle Shadow Word Pain and a coin. Like, do you want to do that? Is it going to help you? You don't have a Spellstone in hand. Like, what are you achieving with it?
We're just going to go for the Mind Blast right now. Okay. Well, I don't know whether I would have always done coin, but I think you never punish too hard for using the pain against this Druid. So I think that was always okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
slightly surprised at the Mind Blast.
I can see the usage of the Shadow Word Pain with the line Tyler's taken, though, because he does now seem quite locked into just the minion presence idea. So Shadow Word Pain now takes care of Spreading Plague tokens. It takes care of 3/6 taunts of Ironwood Golems, I should say. So it can help him push through damage. You just got to give me... The brain's got to catch up sometimes. I'm not good at card names, all right? Don't laugh at me.
My thoughts are
All
plain.
people, Saul, do not say "don't laugh at me" to me. You have no power here. Okay, so Wrath is going to be used, and let's bear in mind we have not really talked about this, and we really should have. So slight apologies, but that Twig's on 1 durability.
Yeah.
So Faeli can make things happen this turn to quite a dramatic fashion if he so chooses.
Yeah, the problem is the 14 cards I believe he had remaining in his deck at the start of this turn. That's really preventing him from doing anything particularly magical right now. And he's a couple of ultimate infestations short of really getting the job done in terms of making the rest of that deck disappear.
Just good to know it's there.
Yep.
Now second Spellstone.
Mind Vision can make this game potential nonsense, by the way.
I wonder.
Okay, we got away with that one. Don't you do it, Tyler. Okay, so the Pain is going to kill off the 3/6 taunt that Druid plays. And now there is a small opening for Mind Visions, although I believe it will fill his hand. Oh no, what am I talking about? Lyra's not down. I'm talking rubbish. It will not fill his hand.
I must consider.
Well, if the Gargoyle gets traded then.
Just going to point out the Ironwood Golem. It is a real minion because the other cards he got were Oaken Summons and the Branching Paths.
And also, if this swing is going to happen, then 1, as you said, Faeli needs more time.
Yeah.
But also, it's going to be doing 3 per turn, as you said, because the armor in 3 is not a bad number when Tyler's made it fairly obvious. He just wants to get aggressive.
Right.
Also, I didn't catch that potion. Elixir of
My
cheese,
thoughts are
maybe, I don't know.
plagued.
I'm not sure what that one does. We'll find out later. Okay, so there's a naturalize though. So Faeli can kill this Malygos.
Right.
Whether he
Whether
wants
or not
to
he
or
wants
will
to.
is
Yeah,
a
exactly.
question, frankly, I do not have the answer to right now.
Right.
Because this is a tricky deck when you get to this point. You have a high priority target that in almost every other single matchup you need to kill. But it's maybe at the expense of an easier win condition.
My thoughts are plagued.
Ooh. No burst damage in hand, but that Xerix does pull the Velen to go along with this Malygos.
You know what? The Ironwood from Tyler is a bit of a brave play, actually. With the Spellstone in hand, it's just diluting the potential power level.
That's true.
I didn't really click too much. I was like, oh, 3-6, gonna start punching him 6.
That's
but like, there's slight dilution if you plan on beating your opponent up. The Malygos and even Lyra and Velen eventually are just way better.
But there's also 2 Gargoyles, Radiant Elementals in there as well, where you could say that if he gets a 3-6 taunt instead of those, then he's actually kind of in business.
Okay.
I could definitely understand, like, if this was just the pure 4-minion version of the deck, right, where it's all about the purity of your revive pool, then getting a 3-6 taunt on your side of the board would definitely be very questionable.
I guess depending on how deep we're going, this is now a one-up competition, but with Shadow Reaper Anduin, then suddenly coins and cheaper spells don't end up being so bad.
Sure.
So yeah, it's kind of just a mixed bag right now, but definitely playing a minion into a resurrect pool that isn't what you plan to, there's an element of risk in that play.
Yeah, Natural Lyra still in the deck, by the way, something I was about to bring up, but Tyler waited so long to start that turn. This is one of my biggest pet peeves, is people who have, you know, inflection points in their turn, who wait until the rope appears to start doing anything. If you're going to draw a card, you have to draw a card a lot earlier than that. If you're going to draw 5 of them and then have a Lyra on board that you're going to cast spells, you need to go quicker than that.
Yeah, the real problem is, were you ever even considering playing Cloning Gallery? Yes, then you need to just do it.
Yeah.
Or instantly decide not to.
Well, what you need to do is mark a cutoff point, right? Where you have to say, if you're considering Cloning Gallery, if it reaches a point and you haven't decided Cloning Gallery is the right play, it is then the wrong play, because you don't have enough time left to complete it.
Yeah, especially when we see, you know, the options available as well with this cheap Topsy. There is 1 Radiant Elemental down, so all sorts of shenanigans could have happened.
Yeah.
If Tyler had just done it a little bit faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And now a single swipe from Faeli just takes care of the Lyra and the Radiant Elemental, and there's this second Spellstone in hand that's just not going to get juiced because of this the lack of spells that are now able to be cast from the Lyra regen and from the Radiant Elemental losing the discount.
There is some throwaway spells though that Tyler does have. Oaken Summons, he can just play, doesn't matter. Branching Pass.
You can throw away a lot more of them with a Radiant Elemental on the board though.
Not arguing with that one, friend. I can just Essence the Lyra. Perfect. Go again!
Yep. Can also Oaken Summons the Radiant Elemental.
Is that bad?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not sure whether your little giggle there was like, that's a stupid
just
play.
fun.
And then
It's just fun,
I
isn't it?
sat and looked at him and was like, you know what? You do need to buff the Spellstone.
Yeah.
It helps you buff the Spellstone and gains you some armor anyway, so...
Yeah, I mean, you can do both, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean,
Opens
right?
the Radiant and then potentially still get the Lyra and then start going off. It's an option.
I don't mind this.
Let's move quickly.
+1 helps him kill off this golem.
Yeah, and
He wants to.
draw a card is actually particularly scary as well because he doesn't want to make Faeli's life too easy for him. It doesn't matter too much because Faeli has perfect scenario. He has Twig up. He probably has Dream Petal Florist in hand by now. But just as a general rule, making your hand too full against a Togwaggle Druid is just kind of doing their job for them because they can play the Togwaggle without giving you the ransom card, which is kind of how the card is balanced.
Side note.
Yes.
And only because I thought Tyler was just doing it as the rope burnt out. Topsy on the Malygos is actually pretty savage for some extra damage. I'm not saying like necessarily that turn, but just if a Malygos lives, well, that's just kind of 12 out of nowhere for free.
Right.
You know, like, it's kind of nutty at that point, right? And when Tyler's kind of just battling back against this large armor gain that Faeli's gained, then yeah, just an extra 0 mana plus damage to that extent is pretty savage.
I feel like Tyler's running out of time though, and I feel like throwing away that Holy Smite as well just to take care of the minion. I understand that his hand was getting full, I understand that he wanted to cast spells and juice that Spellstone, but
he could just pick +1.
Right, he only has, you know, X number of turns where X is 4 or less to get this done because Faeli's just setting up to end this now with the Mali Tog combo.
Oh. Let's see what's cooking, and
No
no Velen, and there is the Ironwood Golem there. Unfortunate, but there are 2 Radiant Elementals down and a Lyra, so funky things can happen. Oh, okay.
All right.
So he has... Yeah, I don't think he can go off quite yet. He's got no more spells. Nope. Maybe he just has to go.
Is there anything in there?
The pause where it's like, do I want to do this? It's like, what?
Oh, there's a Tyrant.
Oh, okay.
Sick. Faeli just sitting back going, please, no, don't get too... Oh, that's coin advice number 2. It's just another Arcane Tyrant. Still a fair way off. Yeah, it's just going to push the 12.
I like
Kinda
it.
like it, yeah.
Cheeky pain.
Cycle that, yeah, cycle that as well.
Go.
He needs to turn...
Ironwood Golem.
He needs, yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. Shadow Pain, the Ironwood Golem there, because he could have replaced it with the Arcane Tyrant anyway if he needed to, if he had more time, and also he just needs to cycle these spells into more damage. He needs damage now, like immediately.
Funnily enough, though, can Faeli get this done? Because he needs to do the swap, kill Tyler through 34, and not die to this.
Right.
Like, that is it's a lot of questions, Sol. I don't know if Faeli's got all the answers, but if he's bringing this deck, he is almost, well, certainly better than me at Tog Druid. That's for sure. So maybe he sees something I don't, but this is going to be difficult. He just needs to know the plan.
Yep, spends his 10 mana. Togwaggle Azalina turn now will come down alongside the Naturalizers for the 10 mana again, and that reduces a ton of the damage on board. And this is kind of what I was talking about previously, saying that Tyler really needs to go fishing for the damage. Double Naturalize in play. Tyler is showing, what is that, 7, 9, 11.
Oh, he loses the armor.
And he loses the armor, yeah. And now Faeli gets to find out whether or not he's dead, and you can see him just studying the hand that Tyler has, trying to work out if he dies to this.
He needs 1 damage, I believe.
Where's the rest coming from? 13, 15 with the extra arms?
Yeah.
So he needs 3 more?
Wait. Did I just count that wrong?
There's 11 on board right now.
Oh, I looked at the golem. Never mind. The 2 elements, Radiant Elemental surviving is huge though, because it means this Lyra can do something.
Tentacles too expensive to go alongside the extra arms?
Would you have a replica? Replica the Radiant? Spend 3 mana to reduce them down again? Because these will be... You've spent the 3 mana, but... I don't know.
That's 2/2 off the Elixir of Purity.
Oh!
Now with the extra arms as well.
I think that's it.
No,
Nope.
still short.
No, it's not. Okay.
Crucially though, Tyler's still at 30.
Look at Tyler, the stress. When you have heard that rope actually hit the end multiple times in one game,
Yeah.
and for some of those times it hasn't gone well for you, I can understand the stress levels going through the roof right now. But is it, can the problem here is Faeli can't psychic scream because it doesn't help him. He needs the fatigue damage.
No. He can mass hysteria and then use some of the tools like Shadow of Pain and Spirit Lash to potentially clear up afterwards.
Does he swap somehow and
What?
can he scream, set up a swap for the next turn and play with those cards instead? I don't know. I don't like these cards anymore. Take them back. I'll play with yours.
And the Academy Award for Wackiest Play suggested 2019.
Yeah, didn't know they did the year awards this early, but I'm happy to accept.
Does get the full clear though with that Spirit Lash and Mass Hysteria.
Is there a free from Amber minion that gets lethal?
No.
There is no 11 damage.
Yeah, I wonder about that replicate on the previous turn.
I
Pointed
think
out.
if it was fast enough, that would have saved way more mana than just casting things for that amount.
Again, he just found himself hitting that rope just quicker than he would have liked. Just didn't have the time to really consider the options, and it's so difficult with Lyra effects and Radiant Elemental and so on going off, because when things happen that fast, you kind of, as an experienced Hearthstone player, you play on instinct. And your instinct, for example, tells you how much mana things cost and how much mana that means you have left when you've cast that card. When there's Radiant Elemental discounts flying everywhere, that instinct goes out the window and you actually have to pay attention and do maths on the fly while making sure your APM is up to scratch, and it's just so easy for things to go wrong like that.
I don't even do the maths all. Once at that point, I go, is it green?
Yes.
Green is good.
Correct.
Like, I can play this or I cannot play this. That you have to almost devolve your own mind to just very basic levels of, if this has a light around it, I can play it and not overthink anything. But now, Faeli has the strange situation of his way to win the game is now just playing with a whole set of cards that aren't Druid cards. But they are pretty powerful when he, in a roundabout way, is applying pressure to Tyler.
7 fatigue. That Holy Water, though, could end up being huge here. It's so slow, though. It's like 2 turns away to make that happen.
What if he just replicates and Holy Waters with a trade? Does that ever... No. What if he just replicates Death Heal? That's just 9 damage. And he can go face this turn.
Sure.
Because Death's the cheapest way to get rid of Lyra. I think trying to Holy Water is just funny business that you don't really need. You create a 5/5, a 4/4, you deal 4, and you kind of know what Faeli's got in his hand as to whether he can deal with it.
Yeah, minus a few random cards.
Yeah, which you don't even think about anymore, right? Like, there's no point. You can't do anything about it. I think that's the best he's got.
I must consider.
Quickly.
Wait. Oh, no, never mind.
Yeah, he's going to go with your line.
Yeah, I like it. It's just, sometimes simplicity is key, right? This makes my opponent fear for their life next turn, and I'm not dead. Done. Next turn. I was wondering if there was something weird he could do. It's like, if he played his, the Ransom, which would force Faeli to probably play his Ransom, but then does his hand get filled up because of Lyra? And like, like weird stuff like that.
You're getting outside of the box here, Raven.
Look, the Druid has the Priest cards, the Priest doesn't have any cards. This is what happens, okay?
Yeah.
I was going to say, what are even the res options now? Scarab Beetle go.
Lots of Beetles, an Azalina, a Togwaggle, and some Priest stuff that he's messed around with in the meantime.
funnily enough, Tyler knows that this 5-5 is dead if Faeli decides, because he has his Shadow Word Death
the Shadow Word Death, yeah. As I was going to bring up when you talked about the replicate play, it's like, yeah, I mean, you're using Shadow Word Death in your replicate turn, which, you know, kind of by proxy means that you know your opponent has that death as well. It's what makes Azalina games so interesting, just to spectate, commentate, or play in. It's just kind of this weird solved game, right? Where, like, in theory, if Hearthstone players were perfect machines, you get to see what the optimal pan out was because everyone would have perfect information. But it's just not the case.
Kind of just throws the Millennium Puzzle in there, doesn't it? And then you just have to, the first person to figure it out just wins.
Right. It's just playing a really, really advanced game of tic-tac-toe.
This is a play I love. The mass hysteria into second attack is great. Really nice play from Tyler there. He's going to play the Ransom just to make his opponent play it. And also, +1 damage.
Yep. I was going to say King's Ransom, essentially, its best function right now is 1 burst damage. It might actually come down to that
make
at
your
some
opponent
point.
spend 5 mana.
Yeah, no, it really does. But, you know, it was important to remember that Tyler, you know, if he was ever 1 damage off lethal, that could be the 1 damage that he needed.
Been waiting a long time for this. But what you're saying is, it's kind of like a bootleg Mojo Master Zihi, because it puts his mana to 5.
Yes. Yes. It's also a bootleg Elven Archer because it deals 1 damage.
I'm in the club! Finally.
I believe this fatigue hits for 9. Yeah. So just
I think that we both said 9. Confident.
Yeah. Faeli just choosing to armor,
and
Tyler with no damage to back that up. He was really on a hiding to nothing on those last couple of plays. He really did have to rely, like I was talking about how it was essentially a solved game. The information was permanent apart from those random cards. He had to rely on Faeli doing something wrong to set up a win condition for himself, and I think Faeli's far too good a player to make that happen. I'm gonna have a talk with Tyler after this game because I think some things might have been a little bit suspect during that game. He went down a couple of lines that locked him into strategies that definitely didn't really work out too well for him in the end. But I want to find out what his mindset was. But it's Faeli that is going to be moving forward, and unfortunately for Tyler, he is going to go 0-2 out of this bracket.
It is, I'd say, maybe even just as unfortunately for Rivius. Tyler does need that ticket back at home.
Yep.
But we can see now Faeli is going to move on and to go up against Bloody Face in the decider match. He has to knock down another player who's already qualified to the World Championship. So is the level of play at this championship. So I will say the face of relief from Faeli at the end there. You know how much this road means to him, and him just being able to survive in this tournament is absolutely huge. But let's find out what he has to say about, quite frankly, one of the craziest matches we've had all day.
I'm joined by Faeli, who's able to survive the elimination match. Talk to me about that last game, Faeli, because it was all over the place, very unusual board states, and quite frankly, a weird game.
Yeah, the last game was a mess. I'm kind of fortunate that in the end, probably everybody noticed, but he missed lethal in the end, so that's where it all turned out. I'm super happy that it worked out. Like, I was super scared in the end because I didn't really know what's in his hand. Like if there is one more Mind Blast, I thought it's not there, but I was never sure. So I was just hoping, and it worked out like it did. I'm super happy now.
You're going to be playing against Bloody Face up next, and everyone's pegging Group B as the toughest group, the group of death. What are your thoughts going up against Bloody Face, and in general, your thoughts on the group?
Yeah, so when I saw the group, I was like, oh, that's not very good for me. So maybe the Chinese guy is weaker, but then I saw him playing, and his lineup is actually very good for our group. So that wasn't the case at all. So yeah, I'm super happy that I'm still in the tournament after being in this group, and surviving the day 2 is what I was really hoping for after yesterday's tough series against Ying.
I wanted to also ask, everyone always talks about winning in Hearthstone, how momentum's a real thing, but another thing that it's really huge is picking yourself after a loss. So, what changed from yesterday to today? Did you do anything different, or did you do anything special preparing for Tyler?
Well, I prepare especially for every opponent, so that's not something that I would do differently. So basically, I spend my evening and nights just jamming games against Tyler's lineup, and I was talking to some of my friends, Jarla in particular. We were just consulting the ban and everything, so I'm glad it worked out.
And I'm guessing tonight's going to be another night of grinding against Buddyface's deck, practicing, getting some of your buddies online, and hammering out all those matchups.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, we don't want to keep you too much longer. Congratulations for surviving to day number 3. And with that, let's head over back to Sottle and Raven.